now my work is in a chemistry lab because my practice, the process has really evolved. I've been experimenting a lot with materials, natural materials especially. So when I realized where the materials were going, transforming, I discovered that this was a science. And I needed to have a conversation with scientists. So that's how I landed into a chemistry lab. I could not have that conversation, in the gallery because they would not be comfortable probably going there. And then still my process is an activity of thinking, experimenting, trying and failing. And these are things that happen in a lab. As much as mine might be different in setting, this kind of lab would permit that conversation between me and the scientists. So here we are now.
Thank you for that, Sheila. Don, I know that you were surprised when we talked about the fact that this exhibition was going to be placed in a laboratory, and you had some thoughts about sort of the division between art and science, and I think it would be great to have you sort of share some of those thoughts, and the fact that you've now seen a piece of work actually in that type of space.
So, thank you, Rainer, for the opportunity, first of all, to have this discussion, and thank you for inviting us to your work. For me, it was, in hindsight, it actually is a good thing that she exhibited art in a lab. It's a protest that should be encouraged by artists. Why? Because there seems to be a dichotomy when we are going through our education system of artists and scientists. That should never be. There should never be that distinction. And to bring a work of art and effort and labor and struggle that she has gone through and present it in a science lab is a protest that all artists should hail and emulate and invite scientists in spaces. Because if you're dealing with materials like we saw she's doing, you'll need the knowledge of scientists to improve those materials. You can't just be, I am a creative and then I must stay in my spaces, interact. How are you going to improve this work? You need scientists. There's a disservice that maybe Professor will enlighten on that came into our culture whereby the distinction exists, but I don't think it should be encouraged. So this is a work of protest. This is a work that should be applauded, and the scientists should feel invited that they should collaborate and put out works of beauty. The Da Vinci's of this world, I don't think they had that distinction in their mind. I don't think they were either called themselves scientists or artists. No, they were just thinkers that wanted to create beauty or utilities that worked. So this is a thing that should be applauded. So thank you very much for doing that. And I think that distinction and that rebellion should be applauded and the boundaries challenged. Yes.
I mean, you mentioned something that we know Angelo had spoken to us about before, and I mean, when we invited you to join this panel, Angelo, you had been really enthusiastic about the fact that there was going to be something happening in the science quadrangle. I think quadrangle you said quadrangle. That's it. And I'd love you to speak a little bit about that because you were just so enthusiastic about this reconnection being made again. And I think people would really welcome hearing a little bit about the fact that it did actually exist before.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. And let me say this, it's actually a very much longer story, but I want to cut out that bit which I think we need to share today. So when you look at the arrangement in this country today, you'll be told that no, actually the university, there are the sciences taught and done by the scientists who must be paid higher than the rest, because the rest actually don't contribute to the community that much. In fact, the president will tell you, do we really need them? No, we need the scientists. So started off, the professors of science were paid more, and now probably all scientists are paid more. No, the professors are paid the same, but it's below the ranks of professors. The distinction in payment is very, very clear. But Makerere University did not probably, or has not been like that. And let me go back to around 1935, when Makerere University started giving the Cambridge diploma, the Cambridge certificate. Oh, it was a great thing to have. So people would come to the university. I think the other great thing to have was the scholarship to King's College Budo. Everyone, someone got a scholarship to Budo, the big thing. Now, people began, fighting and struggling to get the Cambridge certificate awarded by Makerere University. So 1939, the war is starting. There are many people who have this Cambridge certificate. The pressure on the colonial government is massive to give them employment. So, if Africans, natives that they were called, are now in search of jobs and you can't provide them, then you need to start thinking creatively. You need to train them to think creatively. And that is the point when Douglas Tongwe, the principal then of Makerere University, said, hey, why don't we teach art across the board? So by the end of 1939, this university was doing two things: entering the war and the war effort, and entering the teaching of art to everybody. So that was something. So Margaret Trowell, who was the lady in charge of this, the colonial missionary, was teaching art to every student admitted to this university. And that would go on until maybe 1946, when Professor Lemont, a moral philosopher, was invited here to help the university to move from the Cambridge certificate to awarding degrees. You know what he said? Oh, we don't need fine art. In fact, take it out. We don't need fine art in this university. We probably will have artistry, but not fine art. So, Trowell was now forced to revise. Where do we go from here? Either she is thrown out or she stays. And that is now where the distinction between fine art and the rest begins to be very clear. Because now Trowell is forced to start awarding a certificate in art education. I was able to speak to two of her students, Mary Wilson and Charles Sechintu. And they explained what happened, and they were admitted here to come for a certificate in art education, which probably was not enough, but that was what Trowell could offer. Now there was other direction taken, but let me just trace that certificate up to when it became a diploma in 1954. Now you see, we are moving from art for everybody to art with a certificate in art education to a diploma in art. And that diploma probably remained until 1975, becoming the degree of the Bachelor of Arts Fine Art, now the Bachelor of Industry in Fine Art. So what is happening in Makerere University? Art is taught only to professionals who are going to do fine art. It has no relevance whatsoever to everybody else. So what we have here is the collapse of that distinction, which Professor Lemont advocates. And I'm so thankful for our artist, Ms. Nakitende Sheila. Thank you so much for having collapsed this wall. I also thank the chemistry department. There's no reason in this. I think Nisha, whatever he is looking at them and say, that's what I meant when I was talking about the philosophy of science, which looked at collapsing the wall between science on one hand and art and life on the other. I guess I should stop it at that.
Thank you. The crowd loved it, Angelo. Thank you very much for that. I think it's really fascinating to hear about that history, and really important to hear that once that was considered, the right thing to do in many ways. I'd like to just sort of change tack a little bit and actually sort of talk about the material that she used. And Sylvia, I know that this was something that you found particularly interesting, and I'd like to sort of hear a little bit from you about what in particular intrigued you about Sheila's process and the use of bark cloth.
I don't know if any of you noticed some of those chemists who were walking around in white clothes as we were going around the exhibition. For me, that was so powerful, seeing this pristine white coat, scientists walking around on the margins of the exhibition, and it really it was for me, it represented the end of this cycle of STEM and art. And I was just thinking to myself that if chemistry was taught using materials that Ugandans can resonate with, can relate to, like Urubugo, maybe people would not hate chemistry as much as they do. But turning to the Urubugo, I really want to thank you, Nakitende. Thank you very much for using that tool of visual as subaltern creativity, drawing from ancient Ugandan traditions that modernity is so eager to erase. Urubugo has always been, it represents who we are as African people, and it was the oldest fabric known to the Baganda. Not only the Baganda, but also the Ashanti of Ghana. It was used in Congo, it was used in Togo, Cameroon, rather, and also in many areas in the Pacific Islands, like Hawaii, Tonga, Fiji, and Samoa. Sheila's work reminds us of who we are and what we value. Today, coloniality and modernity have reduced the backcloth to negative rituals associated with death and quote-unquote witchcraft. Decades ago, we're talking about history, the legendary Professor Francis Nagenda, one of the greatest artists from Makere's Margaret Trowell's School of Industrial and Fine Art, he chose Urubugo as his vehicle to create art. And he was doing this in line with Margaret Trowell's dream or vision of promoting African art making tradition. And my God, this was in the, I think, 1970s or 80s. This drew a barrage of criticism from his colleagues, accusing him of using quote-unquote devilish and primitive tools. He was indicted for quote-unquote fetishizing witchcraft. Can you imagine? That is how colonization has influenced our way of thinking and our ways of being. In a very powerful way, I think Sheila is reminding us of the versatile and unique ways that Urubugo can be used. Our work is critical in providing us with new eyes through which we to see the beauty of backcloth working as an amazing natural storytelling canvas. Not only is the backcloth organic, but it's environmental friendly and sustainable.
And thank you very much for that, Sylvia. I wasn't even aware that barkcloth had been used so widely across the African continent and beyond. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. And I wanted to just sort of pick up on kind of, one of the points that you made in terms of this, like, the heritage part of it, and also the sustainable part of it. I know, Sheila, that's a very important message that you sort of embedded in the work, and I think it'd be really nice to hear from you a little bit more about actually that side of it and how barkcloth is a representation of that. I mean, that's certainly an interest of mine as an environmentalist, but I think it'd be great to sort of hear that a bit from you as well.
the material. Harvesting backlog is a sustainable process because the tree is not cut down. And when you link it to my process as well, when you look at the highest contribution of deforestation, is paper making industry. But if we use backlog as an alternative, it will become a very sustainable process because you harvest the fiber, transform it into paper, and the tree will still stand. So that activity alone, as we evolve, we cannot deny that we will be influenced by so many things that destroy the environment. But if we are mindful of that process as we work, in my work at least I try to address that, then we can encourage that process of protecting the environment.
Could you also say a little bit about, the title of the exhibition and what the relevance is of that title to work in your process and what was picked up in the science and the chemistry project?
The exhibition title Abaana is from Uganda proper. Abaana tebalibwawo. Abaana tebalibwawo kufa. And it's translated that the descendants of Kintu will not die out. Man will keep on evolving despite all the challenges we face, our mannerisms, our behavior, will keep on evolving. And in my process, I try to address that matter, as much as we are adapting so many ways, we evolve in habits, in material use, in communication, in culture. But if we continue using our material, we are going to tell our story from then to now, and even our children's children will be able to speak about us. And in that way, we are able to address our evolution. Yeah.
Before I open it to the floor, do any of you panelists want to say anything before I sort of open it up to the post-mortemists? Shall I open the floor? Questions from the audience for the panelists?
Hi everyone, and congratulations to the team, and to Sheila, to Helga, to Nakitende. Just really incredible exhibition, and it means so much beyond what we can envision to host it here. Sheila, we had a bit of a conversation about failure, so I think maybe it would be great to just hear your thoughts about what failure means to you and to your process.
Yeah, our conversation about failure, actually, I think being in the lab, I feel that there's an opportunity. These people have been provided with an opportunity to accept failure in such a way that you're allowed to try again, which is different from the creative spaces where people present finished products. You see perfection. So my process has been a lot from failure because I've kept on trying. If you look at the work in detail, I am still trying to find so many things, And for me, the best gift I have got from failure is experience. Because I keep going back, there's no pressure when you know that I failed the previous time and this time I've tried again and it's working. Then you understand that there's possibility. Also in our creative spaces, I don't know what it's like in the science space. We don't address failure. I've not seen anyone admit that they failed. I remember I told you that there's a lot I'm looking at in the exhibition and I've shared my failures. They are there. I can see them, and then I'm seeing people smiling, but I've shared myself. That's my space. That's how it is in the studio. That's our lab. That's the first stage. There's no perfection yet. I'm building something. So it's a conversation I want us as creatives and scientists, that interdisciplinary connection to have that, okay, I've failed here. What can you do as a scientist? What can I add to this to make it better? What can I do to make it work? I don't know if it's shame to share failure or I don't know, but personally, I appreciate that I've failed many times. I'm a product of failure. I'm here in the chemistry lab because I failed many times. Yeah. So we shouldn't be ashamed to fail.
Thank you.
Sorry, Tom just wanted to pick up.
No. I was contemplating the same question, and I think in my mind something shifted a bit, because if you ask me what failure looks like in science, if you add 1 plus 1, you get 3, you'd have failed. So there is that strictly logical terrain where failure can be pointed at and said, this is failure. But the beauty with the marriage between science and art is that may not be an easy thing to point out. Why? Because if you ask innovators, like those who were trying to move from a horse pulling a cart to those who made a car that we see now, at what point did any of those ones fail? There may not be a point you can point at. So the optimistic nature in which she points says failure is experience, failure is optimism, gives all of us something of beauty to see in art. So whereas in science they can say you have failed that number and there is an X and you actually have failed, you can go and prove it that you have failed. In art, the beauty is there is still a whole space of exploration which scientists may never know. So that optimism coming from her gave me a think of like, oh, this is the beauty of the marriage between science and art.
Angelo, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, so there was 1999, Sister Maria Pastori, the Dean of the Art School. He did start some interesting conversation in 1999 because he presented an artwork in which he was questioning whether the national resistance movement was a step forward or a step backwards or both. And so what he did was to create a painting. It has blue and then it has text. And then he wrote on top, fellow citizens, 9 plus 1 equals 0. Now, everyone was like, he's daft. He has a master's degree and he cannot do this simple arithmetic that 9 plus 1 equals 0, 10. But the question he was raising was fundamental. The 9 years we had spent under the national resistance movement, plus the 1 year he was counting, he was not so sure if the promises had been honored and how better we would be presented than using or subverting some rules of mathematics. So as an artwork, it succeeded. But as a statement of mathematics, I don't know.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Richard. I'm coming from the School of Finance. I'm not very travel. My question goes to actually things we have 2 lawyers in our presence, and it's about copyright, intellectual property, concerned with natural materials like backcloth. A few years ago, before Professor Semin passed away, I was also a professor at the art school, had tried to patent his artworks that had been done out of backcloth. In fact, he wanted to patent backcloth. And I find challenges, there are challenges people working in virgin materials. Like I remember this other song of Penkoni, this thing, I think it was in Penkoni, the other trial of the president which he tried to patent because he said it was his. And I don't know where that case ended, but he tried to patent that rhyme because he sang it on radio and TV, and then these DJs tried to play around with it and they remixed it and then say, no, this is my song. But then this is a rhyme which is coming from the tradition where it's coming from. And when we look at remix culture today, remix culture collapses that ownership of copyright. Are there, do you feel like, for example, Sheila, do you think you would like to patent your work as a natural material? And if you did so, how would that be done? Because I'm sure Sheila is putting in a lot of, whether even if she says she's failing, she's achieving, and she's putting in a lot of intellectual material. So maybe for the lawyers or someone else, how does the patent and copyright law work with these natural materials?
Well, I think that intellectual property, including patenting, is the ultimate representation of commodifying, capitalist commodifying knowledge. And I think we should shun it. I don't think that Sheila should really think about patenting Orobugo. Orobugo was used by, most of us may have seen, the only time we've ever seen Orobugo was in the museum as an artifact that is frozen in time, that is decontextualized, that is exoticized, But Orobugo is part of our culture, part of who we are. So one person cannot try to make money out of that material or that knowledge. Because by doing that, you would really be playing the capitalist game, which really, I don't think we want to go there.
Did that answer your question? Any other, or any, would you like to respond to that, Sheila or Don?
Hello. Hi. Hi, everyone. Okay, so my question is to maybe Sheila or any other artist. So when you're in a country where the president himself says, I think art teachers should be paid less because, well, art is not really that important. When you're in such a country and you are an artist, for example, Sheila has produced this thing from the ground up. What can you say about the support you get from Uganda in terms of pushing forward your art? And also, do you think that as the times are changing, there's going to be more support as it comes up, or are we very doomed? Are we artists doomed in our own country that we have to actually look outside for people to believe in our vision? Yeah, that's the question.
The installation, I used my grandfather's space. Personally, okay, I'm going to speak for myself. When you have an idea or you have a vision for something, I think, like in a home, all ideas start in a home. You start thinking around that area. Even when you're looking for support, your immediate support should start with you, your immediate people, and then the government is really a by the way. And I don't think about the government, actually, as long as I'm not breaking the law. what you're doing, do it well, I think they will come to you. Because, I mean, the way the things are going, like expecting that kind of assistance is like a dream. And what I've learned from this experience actually is the people who believe in you will support you. Like Helga Rainer. Nantume actually came to me when I was in a very bad state. But she believed in what I was doing. And she didn't stop. She's not the government either. There were no doctors. Do you understand this? Start small, work your way up, and then you never know, they'll come to you. But if you keep looking, you get discouraged, you give up. Yeah. The people who believe in you will support you.
Yep, she's right. I come from a community, a very minority community of skeptics, people who are actually really hated amongst our communities. And we have learned a lesson that community is our drug. So the artist community invited us to talk, and I remember you were there, and they said, in the meantime, before the government comes and sees the beauty and the importance of your work, you really need to be there for one another. That's very important. In the meantime, then you can sort out these patent issues. Those are discussions you can have because you also need to make money and survive from your work. So whereas being capitalist, and I agree with you, that you are ignoring a history since the 12th century, people who have come working and improving this material up to now, to patent it would be an insult to them. It would be an insult and a robbing of a dignity. But as artists, you'll have to have a discussion on whether certain items can be patented and others maybe not. It's up to you to decide. But community first, and you'll get there. Thank you.
Okay, so two things. One is that postmoderns are never doomed. And I'm sure Samora was thinking, okay. Postmoderns are never doomed. They will, in fact, recreate the doom to see what opportunity emerges somewhere. Secondly, I hate state. State will come with support in the left hand, and will come with the Uganda Revenue Authority in the other. So today, artists in Uganda can make a hell lot of money, and the only time you have to know that is when they have gone to the commercial court and sued for breach of contract or breach of patent. Ronex and did I not see Stella Attar? In fact, Stella Attar was very interesting because what she did was to go into a book. We have quite a number of copies at the high school. It's produced by a gentleman called Segi. It's called African Art. It's a B4, so it's small. She goes in there, makes a photocopy of one of the pages, which is in black and white. She enlarges it, produces it in gold, and prints on t-shirts, and then she sells. Then she disagrees with the person selling, they start quarreling, the next thing they were in the commercial court. And, of course, the question was whether she has copyright at all. In fact, she did. The mere fact that she made a photocopy of a B4, enlarged it to an F3, turned it into gold, not black and white, she had copyright. She walked out with 20 million. There's no t-shirt in Uganda which cost 20 million. So she was selling the she was
Dr. Waswa.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I must say I'm very excited to be amongst such a panel of non-scientists discussing the scientific innovation. Which innovation was developed by an artist. This is a very interesting experience, and it should send a strong message to some of our leaders who want to divorce art from science or humanities from science. As a matter of fact, we cannot able to do experiments or conduct science without other disciplines. And this should be a strong message to such leaders. And my friend Sheila, I just want to encourage you that failure is the beginning of success. Most of the innovations we have in science came out of failure. Actually, 90%, almost 90% of the innovations came out of failure, and I believe that we are moving towards success. A colleague mentioned briefly about patenting, and I strongly believe that you should take up this process. Patenting the process, you may not patent the logo, but the process itself is patentable, in my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Really nice to hear from you and to have you in the room with us as well. Is that? Yes.
What you say about the marriage between technology and art, and I'm not technology and I'm not art and maybe law or zoology or whatever.
Is that Angelo?
Yes.
Or anyone else who wants to take that up?
I don't know why Professor Chen is putting me on the spot. So you want me to be sad or? I think the marriage between technology and art is probably most appropriate in the sense that, and I was speaking to the artist Amy, she's there. So when Amy was an undergrad, before she joined the art school, she did physics, mathematics, and chemistry, and then art. When she came to the art school, when she was in second year, I worked with her. And then at that point, she found physics relevant, especially with respect to the theories of light. And then how those can help us understand what happened at the casualty ward in Mugarura. Now, everybody who is a scientist is thinking, okay, you say physics, light, casualty in Mugarura, disconnect, failure, you cross that people. But she did, and she wrote a wonderful project. I came to a copy of it. Right now, Professor Kimusima and I are supervising a student who is now looking at not the first or the third, but the second law of the second Newtonian law of motion, and how that can help us understand the failure for sculpture to move or the success of sculpture to move. So that's Newton's second law in any way help us understand movement in sculpture. Now, at their school, that is possible. I'm not so sure if the Department of Electrical Engineering there will agree with what the state is doing. I'm certainly not sure. So in the College of Engineering Design Art and Technology, certainly there are people who are interdisciplinary, and there are those who are disciplinary. It is the professor, I won't say his name, so it is College of Engineering, Design, Art and Technology, so it is said that. Now, the professor was so upset that he had to edit the acronym to read CEDT. So for him, it's not CEDAT, but CEDT. Why? Yeah, because we went and spoke to engineers in, in Kampala, they said, exactly what has art got to do with technology? He agreed with them, that no, it has nothing to do with it. So he edited the acronym, and for him, every letterhead of his had CEDT. A was out because A was art. So the College of Engineering and Technology has certain this diversity, and I think it's welcome that we have this divergence of people who are interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary, and those who are disciplinary and discriminatory. So much that they will not want miscegenation and corruption of engineering by adding art to it. So that is probably the long story. The short story, I don't know what the short story is.
I
sad, very sad, that even professors, cannot see beyond their colonized cultured eyes to see the interconnection. And it's a bit sad that 60 years after Flag independence, our education system has never been overhauled to break down these walls that separate different disciplines, the different silos that are taught parallel, as if there is no interconnection. The interconnections are so clear that we really need to overhaul our education system and promote not even interdisciplinarity, but transdisciplinarity, where there is no wall at all between different disciplines.
Thank you. I think.
Good evening. I have a question for you, Sheila. But first, thank you for sharing this work and for everybody who gathered around it. We've talked a bit about failure and about the scientific process. So the question I wanted to ask you related to that is about time. I think I saw you working on Barclay paper 2018, 2019, but I think the time you've been working on it is much longer than that. But also considering that Barclay itself is like a tradition that reaches, or the making of it is a tradition that reaches so far back, but you're also making something that, much like the scientific process, is adding something in the future you may not even be there to see. I'm curious how this has changed your perspective about yourself as an artist in your lifetime, as well as the lifetime of your work and what you're contributing beyond when you'll be here. It's a really good question, but I'll be excited to hear your answer.
Well, thank you for that question. You said time. I've been practicing as an artist for over 10 years. But for all the things that I've done, I feel this one is a good. I feel satisfied, fulfilled, because I'm not only doing it for myself, I'm adding knowledge, and we plan on doing a publication. This is knowledge I want to share in so many ways. I want my kids and their kids to walk into a library and pick a book that has my name on it. So, which artists? We've not done that, and I'm open to collaborating now. I'm in the chemistry lab space. Establishing new relationships. I'm not feeling like a stranger. So, I'm happy and grateful. I'm not saying it's been easy. Like I said, the challenges are there, but once you start seeing a light, then you know you're doing the right thing.
Hello, yes, me. My question is for Sheila. Since you've been working with this material for quite a while now, I don't know how long, maybe years, I don't know, but what utility do you think cloth can have in real life, other than making art pieces? What utility do you think, economic or otherwise?
Is it backcloth or is it what I'm doing with it? Because there's so many.
Both.
Okay. You've seen people design furniture, clothes. But what I'm doing with the paper, we spoke about having, specific. Let's say I was approached by someone to have it as a currency or a checkbook. It's possible. I know the processes of having custom-made paper for specific products. So there are so many possibilities.
Yeah.
Yes.
think, tomorrow, maybe? Tim, was your hand, and then Taro, I think, have hands.
Okay. So mine and questions is a thank you note and comment. The thank you note is to Ms. Nakitende for undoing my trauma around cracking what do you call it, test tubes on Bunsen burners, and to now have a more pleasant association. And the comment is related to what Professor Tamale said around colonization. So I have a backcloth bag that I carry around. It's backcloth all through, then the front has goat skin. And about a year and a half ago, I had a lower back injury. I needed to go somewhere for physiotherapy. So when I entered the room where you do that, as soon as the nurse saw my bag, she ran out. I kid you not, for an entire 5 minutes. And then came back praying, and somehow I had to convince her I was not involved with any sort of witchcraft.
Thank you for illustrating, I think, so many points that were raised this evening. Thank you for that.
Hello. Thank you so much for a very interesting show and discussion. I would like to find out my relation with the making of backbone, as far as I've had of it, has been to do with men and very patriarchal and things like that. How do you go around that in this process? I also read in a brief something about your father making of backbone and something like that. I would like to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so backcloth making has been a men's activity. And when I started working with it to transform it, I had to go back and do almost the exact process, of beating the back, very, very intense. I didn't think about the main part, I just went and did. And I got some good muscles. Yeah, so the first phase was really intense, and just to share a bit, when my mom saw what I was doing, she was like, so you're doing what your grandfather used to do, and that's when she told me, like, her father, my maternal, I mean, it's not from my dad's side, yeah. She told me, your grandfather used to make back clothes as a hobby, he'd just do it. And I never saw him, but my sister was witness to it. She saw him, she knew where he did it. And we went to the village and she told me, you see that tree? The Mugarura was there. Like, that's where he used to sit. And whenever I came to play or he's working, he would say, go back. I think it was a form of ritual that women were not supposed to, jump, all those things surrounding the activity. I've not had any. Exactly. I got good muscles, and then I found new ways of working the pulp in a speedy way, with the traditional technology still. I don't use a mallet anymore. I went back and used the mortar, and like we used to do the brown nuts before the blenders came. And that takes me far less time than when I'm using the mallet. So these are all things I've discovered without a man recommending in my little lab.
So, sorry, just another comment on that, what came up with patenting. I've come across quite a number of times across a company, I think it's owned by a German, who tried to patent backcloth. Or who did, I don't know. But it's like designs and things like that. So, just something to say that this is happening.
If that is true, we should go to court. Because India went to court when they tried to patent basmati rice in America, and so on. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, may I say something about, because you see a lot of the Uganda's art as African art, that art which returns to its tradition as a basis. people have been writing about it. When an artist who has been to art school, like Sheila here, goes to backdrop, does she reproduce a tradition such that she becomes one of the traditional producers? So that question was raised by Sunanda Sanyal, and he wrote a very interesting PhD, which will start off the one by Dr. Chirine, started off easy, started off mine. And the answer is this, that the entry in this university, especially after Professor Lemon did whatever he did, creates an art student who may go back to tradition. Such tradition will be seen in their work, but they are not reproducing and governed by the rules of tradition. They're just using it as an original material, like any other material. And when they produce the work, guess what? It's going to Germany. It's not going to Masaka. It's going to Germany. Therefore, it's going to be latched on an international art circuit. It's not going to be reintegrated into a tradition where it has been separated by the intervention of chemistry and physics and transformation. No, actually, I don't think that's what she intends. She intends to create an artwork which is worth being exhibited. And I look forward to what's going to happen in Germany. I won't be surprised if there will be white walls and invitations, just like it was today. So I thought I should bring up that.
Thank you. So I think you really need to wrap up. So my question is very small. I was just going to ask if you could elaborate a little bit on the meditative and spiritual aspects of the work. I read something about healing, but I think actually your response to healing actually covered a lot of what I was going to ask. So if you need to wrap up, I would say.
Okay, on the meditative and healing, the process is very repetitive. Yeah? And like I told you, sometimes you try and it doesn't work. But as I'm working, it's like I'm thinking, I'm alone with my tools, and you just get in there and start put it out there. If you look at the work, you can tell the different techniques, even after I've transformed the background to paper. So it's in the soul, yes. I can't put a word to it. Yeah.
Thank you. I think there's one more comment and then.
So the comment is this. I'm going to talk about what Dr. Tamale, is that the right title? Yes. So I feel like it all comes down to when you want to get really educated, you have to unlearn a lot of things. So for example, colonization came, and for some reason there's a mindset we all got that it just wrapped us up in, like either, I don't say the madness, but in that thing. So I think to start to, like, if you want to reach a step where now we see that science and art can coexist, or even that black cloth is not witchcrafty, we have to take a step from that mindset that we got from the colonizers, and we start to go back to who we are. Like, who am I as a person? Like, what do I believe in? What do I value? Is this correlating with what I was taught by these people? And then when we start taking those steps to unlearn, the importance is unlearning, so that you get into that state you get seen when she's doing work on the background. Yeah, I think that is just a step. The thing is to unlearn and you'll get educated. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. Unlearning and relearning. But the problem is, many people try to unlearn, there's a lot of BS that comes in, religion, education, your teachers at school, they teach our little kids, me too. The head of the family is the father. It's on the syllabus, yes. Even to those little kids that are being raised by their single mothers, they tell them the head of their reality is. So we are like, you become like robots that are fed and, this rote learning, just imbibe and repeat, regurgitate in an exam, and 3 months later you've forgotten everything. You move on to the next, the next level of the conveyor belt of the education system. It's really pathetic. So,
and the sad thing is that if the child says that the father is the head of the family, then the child will fail.
Yes, of course.
But the mother is the head of the family.
And why do we need to talk about head of the family anymore? Why can't we talk about grandparents? Why do we need to talk about head of the family? But yes, you're right. They'll get a big cross. And the teacher will probably, if that teacher has tried to challenge the teacher, they'll probably tell them it's not our fault that we're a dysfunctional family. And then punish them, going back to
Thank you very much to the panelists, and obviously to Sheila for your incredible work. Please, if you have some time, hang around. There's a few drinks and something to eat, and maybe continue talking. Thank you also very much for taking time to come this evening.